Hey guys, today's show with Scotty Walden from Austin Peay is just really great. Scotty has a lot of energy. He's the youngest coach in Division I at 31 years old, the youngest head football coach in Division I. And he's got a great story. He's going to share it right now on Sports Spectrum.
This is Sports Spectrum, the intersection of sports and faith, where we bring Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
Welcome, everyone, to the show. I am Jason Romano. This is the Sports Spectrum podcast, the intersection of sports and faith. So glad that you're tuning into the show today. Our website, sportspectrum.com, that's the place to go for all of our content. Devotionals, podcasts, stories, articles on the intersection of sports and faith featuring coaches and athletes, everyone in the world of sports intersecting with faith. Check it out at sportspectrum.com. And when you're there, make sure you sign up for Sports Spectrum Weekly. It's our newsletter that comes out every single week to your inbox and keeps you updated on everything we have going on here at Sports Spectrum with the podcasts, our podcast network of shows, as well as articles and devotionals. You can sign up for free at sportspectrum.com. We are presented today by our friends at Compassion International, and because of COVID-19, there are children and their families around the world who are living in poverty in a dire situation. Talking about basic needs like food and clean water and education, it's a really difficult season of life for those overseas because of the pandemic. I mean, the issue of food has gone from hunger to starvation. That's how bad it is. And you can actually make a difference. And Fill the Stadium was invented and became this initiative to stand in the gap for 70,000 kids that would normally get sponsored by people like you and I through Compassion at large events and gatherings. All of those events obviously stopped because of the pandemic, and that left 70,000 kids in crisis. But Compassion wasn't going to leave those kids hanging. They were going to try and figure out a way to make sure to serve those 70,000 kids. And that's where Fill the Stadium comes into play. Check out fillthestadium.com. Compassion teaming with professional athletes, our friends here at Sports Spectrum as well, to help stand in the gap and fill the stadium. Like I said, food, education, medical care, vocational training, the basic necessities. That's what Fill the Stadium is all about. Check it out at fillthestadium.com. To donate today, you can give right now at the website. This is a stadium that cannot remain empty. And we are almost there. Our goal of 70,000 kids and filling up the stadium, we're about 70% of the way there. 50,000 kids have been rescued, but there's still a ways to go. We need your help. Check out fillthestadium.com to donate today. All right, our conversation with Scotty Walden. This is one that I really enjoyed. He is the youngest head football coach in Division I, currently at Austin Peay University, the head football coach there. And they had a unique season finishing the spring 2021 college football season at 4-2. They won 4 of their last 5. That abbreviated scheduled in the spring of 2021 because of the pandemic. Austin Peay are the Governors. They play in the Ohio Valley Conference in the FCS Football Championship subdivision, and Scotty is leading the way, chasing that lion with the Austin Peay Governors. And he's got a really great story of coaching. We talk a lot about his crazy 2020 and 2021 season. That's where we start, and then he gets into his faith journey, and God's really done an amazing work in his life. Check out Scotty Walden from Austin Peay. He's joining us right now on Sports Spectrum. Scotty, what's up? How are you? Welcome to Sports Spectrum.
Jason, I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me on, man. I'm excited to get to do this, and just real appreciative to be on this podcast here, man.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun kind of learning your journey, not only your journey of faith, but coaching and kind of all that God has done in your life and brought you to where you are today. Let's start by talking about what I would, I guess, say the crazy turn of events of 2020. And I'm not talking about the events that everybody saw, in the news everywhere with the pandemic. And certainly that plays a part too, and all
Sure.
that took place in 2020 politically and all that. but that led you to Austin Peay. So most coaching positions don't take place the way yours did. You actually served as a head coach for 2 teams this past season, if you really look at it in the way we did, because of the way the pandemic affected college football last year. Take us through all that kind of transpired and how you were able to come to Austin Peay.
Well, Jason, I again, getting to do this podcast, getting to talk about faith along with football is real important to me, because it's hard to separate the two for me. And I'll tell you this, man, like even before everything happened at Southern Miss, that year, amazing blessings came in 2020, but it came to a ton of hardships. Just, I'm sure a lot of people have that story, but, I kind of started off like in January, kind of taking you back, and we played a bowl game. I was at Southern Miss. We played a bowl game against Tulane. They're in the Armed Forces Bowl in Fort Worth, my hometown. And so I grew up loving TCU and always, want to be a Horned Frog and getting to go to their games and stuff. And then getting to coach a game in their stadium was unbelievable, right? So we play this game. Man, we start out like first 2 drives just killing it. And I'm like, man, this is going great. And I was like, I felt good about the day. We were rolling. All of a sudden, we kind of hit a brick wall. Starting quarterback got hurt. Starting slot receiver got hurt. And just, the ebbs and flows. That's football. It's going to happen.
Absolutely.
And, we ended up losing that game. And Tulane, great football team, and beat us. And, and so that kind of – but that hurt. That was just we were so ready to play that game. And that was a big loss, for our program at the time. And so that started out 2020 kind of on a rough note. And then and then Jace, this coaching profession, in the off season, there's jobs upon jobs going around. The coaching carousel begins, and it's amazing how, God always has a plan. I'm always reminded of God's will and plan for our life is so much greater than our own. And I learned that through, because a lot of times in my career, like before 2020, my career was full of yeses. Yes, you'll be the head coach. Yes, you'll be an OC. Yes, you'll do. Yes, you'll get. And then it was filled with a ton of no's. When I got to Southern Miss, I got passed over to be the offensive coordinator three different times, and then I finished second for a head coaching job. That I interviewed for, and then I finished. I didn't get a couple of FBS coordinator jobs that I was in the mix for. And it was just a bunch of no's back to back to back, and I was like, I don't understand the plan. I was literally at a point, Jason, where my wife and I were questioning God, like, what is the plan? Like, I can't see it, I can't feel it, and but it is amazing that if you just continue to remain faithful and just trust that plan, and that's easier said than done. And I think we all have moments in our life like that, and that was really hard. But just to kind of flash forward, not to be long with that first question you're giving me, but you talk about 2020, I go all the way back to January, because it was so just the whole thing was impactful. So we flash forward to the month of March, and March 13th, our first son was born, Luca, who's a year old now, and he was born literally as the pandemic is beginning, right? The NBA shut down, and my wife is about to go into the hospital. I'm freaking out because, we don't know this thing. No one knew what this thing entailed. My wife is, it's our first child, and we're nervous in that regard. And, we go to the hospital, and the check-in process was normal. But by the time we left the hospital, the check-out process, and you could tell people checking in, was totally different because of the pandemic evolving. And that was a very scary thing. And we just wanted to make sure she was healthy and my son was healthy. And God bless us with an amazing child, the biggest blessing I could ever ask for. And it really, like, Jason, I'll say this, man, it put so many things in perspective for my life. Right. Those job opportunities that I didn't get, those things, they didn't seem to matter, because I was like, this is my job now, to be the father to this boy. And I grew up in a single parent home, and I saw my dad maybe 10 to 12 times a year. And I'm just so, and I think God blessed me with a little boy that I get to be around, and I get to raise with my wife. And that's the biggest blessing I could ever ask for, other than, football is great. It's my love. It's my passion. God's put on my heart. But for me to be a father now has really changed my perspective that, this stuff is all temporary, but I'm going to be a father to Luca. the rest of his life, and being impactful to him is in a godly way is what matters. And so that going through all of that, and then the pandemic hits, and my wife, she appreciated the help. I think, me getting to be home to take care of Luca with her. But I do think there was a point in the pandemic there, Jason, where she was ready to, all right, go back to work, like, get out. It's time to go, But so we go through all that, and then we come back, we battle that. We go through the summer, we get to the season, raising a child, getting told no for jobs. We go into the season, first game against South Alabama at Southern Miss. And I'm the co-offensive coordinator, receivers coach at the time. And, we get beat. And then our head coach decided to, step away. Some things happened there. After the first game, totally unexpected to myself and the staff. And, we sit in there in a team meeting, a staff meeting, at 3:40 p.m. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was 3:40. And they call a staff meeting. And this is 20 minutes before our team meeting at 4:00, and they tell us what's going on, and they say, hey, you're the interim head coach, and I had time to. I was walking in the AD's office, texting my wife like, hey, I'm the interim head coach. Let's get ready to roll, and let's do this thing. And so, we grabbed the bull by the horns, and I think and I was just kind of laughing inside, like, all right, God, so this is all right, man. This is how you're gonna do it, man. Like, so we're gonna go from all these no's, and all of a sudden you're just gonna snap your fingers, and this is what's happening. Like I was like, okay, man. So like you got to buckle up. So we just had to grab the bull by the horns and go. And I give my wife a ton of credit. Just amazing adaptation to that scenario. And I give the staff that I was working with at Southern Miss amazing credit, and those players most of all the credit, because they went through everything with the racial social injustices in our country, and with also the pandemic, and then losing their head coach, and then me coming in and having to, the amazing just will of those players to adapt to that. And they came to work, and we went to work and did our best every single day. And, and then as the season goes on, I got COVID, and around that time I got COVID, I had to miss the Liberty game, due to that. And in the middle of kind of as that's going on, Austin Peay, was reaching out and showing a lot of interest in their head coaching position. And, it's kind of, and then Jason kind of just had to make a really hard decision because, I could have stayed and, bet on myself and interview. And I think both decisions were betting on myself, but, stay and interview for the Southern Miss job and have a shot at it, or take, a job that, a place that wanted me and my family. They wanted the vision that we had for the program. It was a great fit with Gerald Harrison, our athletic director, who is an unbelievable person and unbelievable guy to work for. And so when that came up and came about, I jumped on it. My wife and I had a lot of peace about it, and we decided to bet on ourselves and get to go lead a program. And now, it's God just said, wait, man, it's coming. Like, wait, like something's coming. And sure enough, us being impatient creatures, I can't see it, but God threw that curveball at us. And, the only thing that I hate, Jason, about the whole thing, and again, God's time is God's timing, and it's not my, my deal is just, having to leave Southern Miss during, that season, and they'd already lost their head, their head coach one time, having to lose another one. And then, and then just, this whole thing with social media, things get leaked out on social media and stuff. And I wish I could have got to the players before social media got a hold of it. And that's just but those are things. And I think, after the deal, the guys understood, but I had deep relationships with those guys, those players. I view them as just, those are like, my guys, and I always wanted to do right by them and treat them right. And I just felt like the way that word got out that I was leaving was unfortunate, but they understand now. They understand how the deal works, unfortunately. And and then since we've gotten here at Austin Peay, just been a tremendous blessing. But it's just amazing to go through that and see how the Lord works, and His plans are bigger than our plans.
Well, that is quite 2020, Scotty. But then you come to this team that has to prepare. And normally you come to a team and you prepare for a new season. But there wasn't a whole lot of time here. I mean, you had a spring season. That's why I say you coached with two different teams in the same season, because it's still the quote-unquote 2020 season, even though it was pushed for Austin Peay into the spring because of the pandemic. And so you're playing and coaching games in the spring, in February, March, and April. And it's like, my goodness, what a turnaround. And to have to do that really fast, it's obviously a lot of players that you didn't, probably all of them that you didn't recruit, because you've got to turn around so quickly and coach players that you really probably had to just get to know for a couple months before you could even coach them in a game. What was that experience as a coach? I know it's going to be something you're going to look back on someday and be like, man, I learned so much during that time. But even in just the few months it's been since you last played a game, what's some of the things that you think about when you realize how quickly you had to turn around? And you had a pretty good season. I think you finished 4-2 in that first year, and that's pretty good. I mean, what was that like? And playing football in the spring, just different.
Oh, I mean, Jason, I mean, where to start, man?
Right.
The ride, the ride was just starting. When I got the job, little did I know, like the ride, it was just beginning. We weren't finishing that ride.
Yeah, so you got the job now. Congratulations. Go ahead and try this. Try this out.
Yeah. You get hired in November, and hey, you got to put your staff together. You got to recruit, and then you got to go play a game February 28th. And I'll be honest, It was like, just drinking out of a fire hose for a lot, because Jason, there's decisions being thrown at me, like, roster decisions, things like that. Like when I got here, I was like, I don't know these guys. Like I'm not making any, moves like that or like we got to talk, it's the end of the semester, certain guy. Yeah, I told the whole team when I showed up, I said, I don't know which one of you guys are walk-ons or who's on scholarship. I have no clue. Like I don't even, like I don't know you guys yet. And so like it was just a lot. And I give credit though to this administration making the transition as seamless as possible, and our coaches and the players. Again, I go back, players, the one thing I've found through this whole scenario, players are incredibly resilient, and I give them, especially here at Austin Peay, embrace. I mean, I walked in, Jason, I've never set foot on this campus. I walked into our indoor facility to meet our team for the first time, and I mean, they clapped for me. Awesome. Like that was a little thing to me that went a long way and got me juiced up. Because I was like, these guys have been through a lot. They've lost their head coach. Right. They were 0-3 in the fall. They went through the pandemic. They were going through things too, just like the guys at Southern Miss. And then a new coach walks in. I felt that they could have just sat back in that chair and said, yeah, whatever. But they clapped. They embraced. And they bought into what we were doing, and they had a lot of success the year before doing it a different way. And some guys, like they just bought into that thing, and we went to work, and I thought that our staff did a great job. But you talk about getting here in November and hiring our staff. Number one, had to do that. Immediately got started with our mat drill phase of workouts. We had 6 a.m. workouts because we got to get the culture installed. To me, it's not about, the X's and O's, that's got to get installed, and you got to have sound schemes and plans of attack, no doubt about it. And we were getting to that, but number one, the culture's got to get established, because if it doesn't get established off the bat, then it's never going to get established. So the challenge for us and the temptation for us, I think, as I hired our staff and we got to recruiting and we started doing our mat drill workouts, with our players, the challenge was, and the temptation was, okay, sacrifice the culture for scheme, X's and O's, wins,
short-term game. Yeah.
Short-term game that we knew, like, my deal here is this is my first Division I head coaching job. So you can bet your tail that I'm not going to sit here and try to do something for a short-term, success. I want this to be a long-term thing, and I want this to be a place, because this is a phenomenal place. We love it here. We want this place to be in Clarksville, Tennessee, to be a destination place for recruits and for donors and for people. Because it's a phenomenal place with phenomenal people. And I think we have a chance to be really successful here on and off the field. And so I didn't want to sacrifice, the culture, for wins or anything like that. And like, as you said, short-term gain. And so, we got in here and the coaching staff, man, we hired those guys in a heartbeat. I had an idea on most of them. And then some guys, I had to go out and search and get, and I'm appreciative of them for taking the opportunity to come in. And some of those guys left FBS programs to come here, and they took big steps, and they, as our program mantra says, they chased the line, and they went and stepped out in faith, and they came in here and we hit the ground running, recruiting, signed the number 1 class in the OVC, the number 3 class in the nation. We beat several FBS schools in our recruiting rankings. And that's a tribute, just purely hard work. We were literally, because you got to think about it, we were practicing, we had quote unquote camp in January and February.
Right.
Really, you didn't have a camp because school had started by the time you were able to practice. And we hadn't been on the field with these guys. We don't know these guys. We haven't been on the field at all. They don't know us. And so we get on the field with them and we're working through. And in the middle of that, we would leave practice, sprint up here to the top of Fort Terrace Stadium to the third floor, and we'd hop on a Zoom call just like we're doing right now. And we'd have sofa set up and, jerseys set up behind us. And we're hopping on a Zoom call with mom and dad and coach and the recruit. And because we had to sign a class in February, and we signed 22 guys that I think I could not be more proud of our staff. I think they fit our culture and they're great players. But I was blown away at how we were able to do that without even getting on the road. Our athletic director jokes all the time. He's like, well, I guess I don't got to give you much recruiting money for your budget next year. See what you did with your Zoom calls. And I said, hang on a second on that now. Hang on. So anyway, Jason, it was unreal. Yeah, wow. Yeah, unreal. And we get we flash forward, we get in the season, and we lost our first game to Tennessee Tech. And at that point, I think that's where a lot of guys could have questioned. They could have said this ain't working, or this culture is not the same as the past, and they could have really tanked it in. And they didn't. They kept fighting. We come back and beat, Tennessee State the next week, and then had a big time double overtime win against SEMO, who is a premier program in this conference. And you saw the belief begin to happen. And that's kind of why I got the ice bath behind me here on the picture right here. That was that SEMO game. That was an amazing game for our guys and for our culture to really get established. I go, okay, the guys are starting to really buy in. And they're starting to understand what the things we're talking about and preaching every day. Yeah. Because during camp, we were having offensive install meetings, defensive install meetings, special teams install meetings, and we were having culture install meetings because we haven't even talked about that stuff yet. They've seen it day to day, but you got to install your culture like an offense or defense. And we were installing it on the fly. And then for them to get that big win against SEMO and see it, for real, see it, I think was huge. And that was a big road. It was on the road. It was a big game. But then, Jason, the adversity really struck. We played the next week against, UT Martin and lost a heartbreaker on a field goal. And then the next two games after that were our, games against, ranked opponent, Jacksonville State, who was the number 4 ranked team in the FCS playoffs. They were a 4 seed and were undefeated, I think, on a 7-game string at the time we played them. Then Murray State, which Coach Dean Hood came into, took over that program and did a phenomenal job. They were undefeated when we played them the next week, and they were the 15th ranked team in the country. So we lose to Martin, and we have I thought at that point, I was like, this is going to tell, where we're at right now. Our guys are going to step up and fight, or our guys are going to, start complaining and start saying, oh, this new coaching staff this, or the spring season this, whatever. And instead they came back. They had a mindset to work. We go out, we beat Jacksonville State on the road, first time since the 1970s. Here at Austin Peay, we've done that. Turned right back around to play Murray at home and end up beating those guys on a last-second field goal, kind of like Martin beat us, and just the grit. So I give our players a ton of credit and just in adapting to a new culture, a new staff, new systems, new scheme, just a new message, and being able to go out in the midst of all that and continue to have high expectations and demand and go out and accomplish what we accomplished this year. Do we want to win a championship? Yes. Was that our goal? Yes. Do we want to be in the playoffs and compete for a national title? Yes. That is our goal. That is our aspiration. We're not going to shy away from that. But at the end of the day, we got to step back and look at what all these players and coaches and all of us have been through, and to accomplish what we accomplished was unbelievable. And I'm so proud of these players and proud of where we're headed. And it was kind of an awesome, I guess, ending, if you will, to a crazy 20 year leading into this spring season. So that was a challenge.
Let's take a quick break from our conversation here on Sports Spectrum to tell you a little bit more about Fill the Stadium and our friends at Compassion International. Now, you know about Compassion. They are the most trusted child development ministry in the world. All that they do is about children and releasing them from poverty. They do it all in Jesus' name. And now we have this Fill the Stadium initiative that's been going on for more than a year now, and we're making such amazing progress trying to fill 70,000 empty seats with children who are in crisis. 70,000 kids were left without an opportunity for food and shelter and clothing and all the basic necessities that children should have. Normally they would get sponsored in a regular year, but the pandemic wiped all of that out. And so now you can come alongside myself, our friends at Compassion, our pro athlete friends, and help fill the stadium and release kids from poverty. You can go to the website, fillthestadium.com, to donate right now. Fillthestadium.com, and let's release these kids from poverty. Let's reach our goal of 70,000 filled seats. Go to fillthestadium.com. And we are so glad to have Scotty Walden here from Austin Peay as the head coach of Austin Peay and the Governors, and he's joining us here today on Sports Spectrum. I love the story of how crazy this year was for you, Scotty, but we are the intersection of sports and faith, and one question I really want to ask you is about that faith in your life. I think anybody who has a walk with the Lord and has Christ in their life, we all have those moments where we can point back to and remember kind of how that faith came about. Seeds that were planted, and then the moments or moment that we say yes and we begin that journey. Can you share your story?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's kind of going back, like when I was a kid, I didn't really grow. I mean, I'll be honest, Jason, I didn't really grow up in the church.
Yeah.
I like I said, grew up in a single parent home, and my family was really, real religious and going to church all the time, stuff like that. And, my mom kind of had, rebelled against that, and she found Christ through another way. And to kind of just touch on that, my mom is my hero because she really is the one that showed me that Christ has no boundaries. God has no boundaries on how he can reach you. And I really viewed, I think, Christianity early in my walk as like a checklist of items. And I always struggled with that because I was like, if I don't pray today, I'm not going to heaven, or if I don't pray today, I'm not going to get this award or reward or whatever. And I give my mom a massive amount of credit because she battled addiction and she conquered it, and she conquered it awesome. Through a relationship with Jesus Christ. And she found Christ not through the church, but through, a group setting, of other people battling her addiction. And she had, as a singer, she's the strongest person that I know, especially now that, how it is, Jason, you get older and you learn about the world and how things really work. And you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how strong my mom was when I was a kid. And I look back on it now and I see, because, through this recruiting process, you meet thousands of families, you meet so many people, and you see great stories. You see some really sad stories. And there's times I look at some and I'm like, that could have been my mom. Go down the other way and lose her life, not make it, and not raise me the way she did. I mean, she had me when she was 39 and that alone was a miracle, and it's funny. I was born on her birthday, it was we share the same birthday. She had me when she was 39. And then she battles all these addictions, and she conquered them through God. She didn't do it by herself. She did it with God and the relationship with Jesus Christ. And she didn't necessarily find that just through the church. And I'm not advocating that the church is bad or anything like that. I think church is instrumental in your spiritual growth. And I just think we got to view church differently. Church is not for perfect people. It's a hospital for the broken. Yes. And that's where you go. It's a recovery place. It's not a place of, I'm perfect, so that's why I'm going here and put our nose up at people, because I got really turned off of Christianity with people like that. And I think my mom did as well. And now that I have grown in my faith and things of that nature, I see really what church is and really what a relationship with God is. And my mom's the first one to show me that. And so when I was, growing up in junior high school, I always had kind of that spiritual aspect. I always prayed, always believed in God, always had that. But I had, been, baptized when I was young, when you don't know what you're doing, and saved when you don't know what you're doing. Right. And that's great, but I wanted it to mean something. So, in 2009, I was in college and we went to, and that's kind of why I'm really big into FCA. And that's a really big part of who I am. And so we go to a Fields of Faith event in Abilene, Texas at Shotwell Stadium. And we go out and And I went out with, a bunch of I was playing college football at the time, and had a bunch of my buddies, teammates there, and we went out to, go out there and worship and have a great time. And I didn't plan on doing anything. And I just never forget, the speaker just had everybody bow their heads and, talked about a relationship with God, what that looks like, what that means. And if you're ready to take that step, raise your hand. And I promise you that, just something told me, man, you got to raise your hand. And it just happened. And I just raised my hand and hi. And then he was like, if you raise your hand, come down to the field and let's get with a huddle leader. And I just felt like it was time for me to make the decision to accept Christ into my life and to go on that path. Cause I felt like at the time I was just so consumed with, and this is a temptation with our players I talk to you about all the time. I was putting my identity in football. Mm-hmm. I was putting my who I was in football and my success in football, and football, is what you do. It's not who you are, and that's the same with our professions. Coaching, I'm going to be judged in this life on my wins and loss records, and I'm going to get hired or fired based on if I'm winning games or not. I totally get that. That's the game, but we're playing the eternal game, and that's a totally different scoreboard that the material world can't judge me on, and I'm not going to let them judge me on, and so, I'm going to be judged by, God's given me a program right now to run, and he's given me whether it's a position room or whatever it is, he's going to ask, what did you do with that? And I want to make sure that I can tell him honestly that we did everything we could to run a program or run a room that honors you and puts you first at the forefront. And if we do that, then I think we're successful regardless of what that wins and losses record tells me. And so I was really struggling with that. And that's why I felt I raised my hand, and it just came naturally. Mm-hmm. And since then, that's when I was saved. And then flash forward, a couple years later, I was playing at Scotty University out in Alpine, Texas, out in the middle of nowhere. Closest Walmart's 2 hours away, and you're out there in the desert, Jason. I mean, look, Google image this place sometime, man. I mean, it's one of my favorite places in the world because it was literally. You
got to say where it was again. Say where it was again.
So it's a Sol Ross State University. Okay. Yep, in Alpine, Texas, and I'm telling you now, beautiful place. I mean, but it was the desert and it was the mountains. You wouldn't believe it was in Texas. I mean, it's 90 miles away from the Mexican border down there. It was unbelievable, but it changed my life because when I transferred out there, I was like, man, this is the place God's calling me to. I can't, I never thought I would end up, out here, a town of 7,000 people, 9 hours from my hometown. And, we're way out there, and what am I doing out here? And played football, played quarterback my senior year. And then, when I transferred out there, I wanted to coach, so I told the head coach that, and again, God, you don't know what's coming and what the preparation is. And as a 22-year-old, I was able to get the offensive coordinator job my first year out of playing, and so I was going from coaching a group to leading the offense, playing with a group to leading and now coordinating an offense my first year ever coaching. And so God, just opened that door. And, but I'll say this, in my time, making that transition from player to coach and stuff, I felt like, it was really important, I wanted to, again, make a decision that, to obviously I've accepted, I've kind of rededicated my life to Christ, if you will, in 2009. And then I wanted to, I wanted to go through baptism again. I wanted to go through like that, I wanted to kind of have that awakening, but I wanted it to be my decision, not, because God put it on my heart, not just because, hey, it's what you're supposed to do. And we had a team chaplain there, and Dan Dunnigan, he married my wife and I, and Dan is one of the most amazing people. He still serves as a team chaplain out there. One of the most just godly men I've ever met in my life, and a true just warrior for Christ. He's a FCA, he helped out with us at FCA out there, but was a team chaplain. And, he was like, well, if you want to get baptized, we can do it. Meet me at the Sol Ross State swimming pool tomorrow at noon or what, so we just went to the swimming pool there on campus, and we did it, man. It was me and him, and it didn't need, anything else, but just having people like that and you walk with you was, with me putting me around him was instrumental, because I saw just, he was such a servant. I mean, I wish I could be a servant leader like this guy. I mean, he has the most amazing heart ever. Yeah. And, that's that's kind of, Jason, how my walk with Christ evolved and my relationship with God has evolved. And I want to be clear on this, podcast, stuff like that for people listening and stuff like that. Like, I am not perfect. I am not. You come to one of our practices, like you're going to probably hear me say a word that ain't very Christian. Okay. Sure. And that's, look, I'm admittedly on that. Okay. Like I want to work on that. I want to get better at that, but I want people on this podcast to know, because I'm not perfect. But who's in me is perfect. And
right.
who I worship and who I pray to every day is perfect. And the only reason why I'm surviving day to day and I have a chance to do what I'm doing is because of who I serve, and that's Jesus Christ, and there's no other reason, why. And so I just want people that feel encouraged on that when they listen to this or whatever. Like you don't have to have it all figured out and be because I used to put so much pressure on myself that I got to have it figured out. I got to be this perfect guy, or God can't use me, and that's furthest thing from the truth. And I've had to learn that over the years, and it took me a long time to learn that, and I'm still learning that as we go. And so I'm not a finished product. I don't think any of us are ever finished products. And I just want to throw that out there as we're talking. I always feel compelled to say that because I've listened to people talk a lot of times and I'm like, man, this is like the perfect person or I'm not 100%. Yeah. But the God I worship is, and I think that's what matters.
Yeah. I mean, if you were perfect, Coach, and I tell people, anybody who says that, I always say, if you claim to be perfect, then you wouldn't need God, because you'd be God. And humans make terrible gods, don't they?
Yeah. Horrible. Yeah. I don't want anybody human being a God. I promise you that. No doubt.
That's right. Yeah, he is Scotty Walden, and he's joining us here on Sports Spectrum. A couple more questions I just want to ask you. On your Twitter page, there's a bunch of scriptures listed there. We won't go through them all. We can have people go to your Twitter page and look them up. Obviously, Proverbs 27:17 is there. Iron sharpens iron. Philippians 4:13, that we can do all things through Christ who gives us strength. Those are great scriptures, and there's a couple other ones as well, Psalm 3 and 1 Corinthians 9:24. So I love those. People can go to those. But there's also a couple of hashtags. You've alluded to one of them, Chase the Lion, which is, I can guess that's sort of a culture-driven hashtag and motto that the team has, to chase the lion. You kind of gave us the snapshot on what that is. Then there's two others. And so give us the Cliff Notes version here, because for time purposes, we could probably talk for hours, and we probably will, Scotty, at some point about all these. Code Red is one hashtag, and I can guess what that is. And then Unity is the secret, which is the other. So let's talk about those hashtags real quick. Code Red. Tell us about Code Red.
Yeah, Code Red is our core values here at Austin Peay, and that's real simple. It's down in our team room, and it stands for commitment, relentlessness, unselfishness, toughness, and integrity. And that's what we're trying to build here. And so, like, when we're looking for what we in recruiting and what we're trying to develop here on our team, we look for what we call OKGs, and OKGs stand for, our kind of guys, and our kind of guys represent Code Red. And that's the kind of people we awarded, we put 4 guys on scholarship here recently. And those are all what we call OKGs, because they represent our brand and they represent Code Red every single day. And so we want to have a team that's committed, a team that's relentless in their pursuit of chasing greatness every day, on and off the field. We want to have an unselfish team that's not about, me. It's about we. It's about the team. It's about being a servant. And then, we want to have a tough football team, a tough team that's not only, and we talk about more of the mental toughness than we do physical toughness, and the mindset that it takes to be a winner in life and a winner on the field. And then we want to have a team of integrity. We want to be able to have open lines of communication. So I want our players to feel like they can always, come in this door and talk to me about anything, problems, whatever, talk to their coaching staff about anything that they want to talk about, and let's have those open lines of dialogue. And let's be real with each other. I want to have a group of guys that I'm around that are men of integrity every single day, and that's what Code Red stands for.
I love that. Code Red, cool. And then you have the Unity is the secret. Obviously, just that hashtag makes me excited, just knowing about unity. But there's a secret sauce in this that's what leads to, I guess, in success in the eyes of bigger things than just football. Give me a little hashtag Unity is secret and what that means.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. And Jason, I got to give credit where credit's due. I played for a guy in West Texas at Hardin-Simmons University before I went to Sul Ross, named Jimmy Keeling, who is one of the all-time Division III career win leaders. I mean he has won multiple games and championships and was the leader of that program for 20 years, got it started off the ground, and played for him for a couple years. And I was just blown away at the culture he developed. That was one of the sayings in our culture was unity is a secret. And I said, man, like when I saw that, I was like, I'm always going to take that with me. And then getting over the years to learn, what that was about and what that means. And it just epitomizes our culture and who I am is, X's and O's are great. Scheme is great. Talented players are great. We're going to recruit great players. We can have the most talented locker room in the world. But if we're not unified as one and everybody going the same way for a common goal, then we have nothing. And so the secret ingredient, the secret sauce to making things work in championship teams and whether it's a championship football team or an organization or, a business, a bank, whatever it is, if you have cohesiveness, you have unity and you have a togetherness and everybody truly has each other's back and they're going towards the same goal. That's the secret. That's the secret to success in any venture you do. And you can't do it alone. You have to do it together and everybody having each other's back and everybody backing, code red, everybody holding each other accountable and having that. And then, that's always been a huge, huge emphasis for me. But then I think it applies into our world today. We have so much, the racial social tension. We have so many things like that going on. And that's why, on our helmets, we put unity right here in the square of our forehead because, I just think that's a message that to me, as I think about everything going on in the world today, that's the word that always comes to my mind is we need unity. We need togetherness. We don't need divisiveness. And I think divisiveness is the root of evil. I think a house divided can fall, but together it stands and it stands strong. And I think that's true for our country and our world today. And that's, going forward, what I would love to see. And I want to be a small, part of that change, or hopefully with our football team of being a unified, and that's why I love football. You've got different ethnicities, different cultures, socioeconomic backgrounds, all coming in one locker room. And football is the ultimate team sport, in my opinion. You cannot do it alone. And the defense has got to have each other's back. The offense has to have each other's back, and so does the special teams units. And it doesn't matter race. It doesn't matter if you're on full scholarship, a walk-on from a 2A high school, 5A high school. It doesn't matter. You got 2-parent home, 1-parent home, no parent home. It doesn't matter. You have to come together. Football demands you to come together to go be successful. And that's what I love about the game more than any other game in the world. And if you're going to do that, if you're going to have success, unity is the secret to doing that.
I'm reminded when you say that of my friend Bill Curry. Do you know who Bill Curry is? Obviously the former coach. He wrote a book called The Huddle and the 12 Men, and or 11 men, and he talks about the huddle. Have you ever heard his huddle message? I'll have to send it to you if you haven't.
I have not, but I love hearing him talk. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's amazing, and he has such a charismatic way of delivering his message and a wonderful way to tell stories. And he's full of wisdom. He's a guy who played in the NFL with like Vince Lombardi and Bart Starr, right? But he talks about the huddle, the uniqueness of the huddle, everything you just described, people from all different aspects of every background and race and read and religion and creed and religion coming together for a common purpose, and what a reflection the huddle can be on life, and how this is really how God really designed us and orchestrated us to live in unity in this body of not only faith, but also life is unity, and people from all walks of coming together, and football is such a great example of that. So I'll send you that video. Please
do fire me up.
It'll fire you up. I promise you that, Scotty. I'm fired up that we had this time together. Thank you for being here on the show. We will have you back on because there's other questions and other things I'd love to get into with you. Maybe we'll do it in person. I'll take a trip down to Tennessee and we'll do another podcast down there. But thanks for being here, my friend, and all the best to you.
Hey, Jason, thanks for having me on. It was an honor. You come see us in Clarksville. We'll treat you right, man. We got some good barbecue, and we'll have a good time. But it was an honor to be on the show, and thanks for letting me share. It means a lot.
Many thanks to Scotty Walden from Austin Peay. Man, he's got so much energy. So glad that he joined us here today on Sports Spectrum. Tons of positivity. I can see why this guy is considered one of the youngest and brightest offensive minds in college football at just 31 years old, the youngest head coach in Division I, coaching Austin Peay and their upcoming football season. It'll be fun to watch this fall as we get back to normal and see how Austin Peay does with Scotty leading the way, not only on the football field, but in the game of life as well. He's doing great stuff with Austin Peay. We appreciate Scotty for joining us here today on the show. Make sure you give him a follow on Twitter. Let him know you heard his story right here on Sports Spectrum. And then do us one quick favor. Subscribe to this podcast so that you never miss an episode. And then please tell someone about Sports Spectrum. Tell them about this podcast. Tell them about the articles that you read on our website. Maybe the devotionals. Maybe you want to sign up for our Sports Spectrum quarterly magazine that you want to give to someone as a great gift or use as a resource to share the gospel with someone who loves sports and can also enter into a relationship with Jesus, because that's what we're about, bringing Jesus back into the conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, the website, sportspectrum.com, and we're thankful to our partners and sponsors, Compassion International, as well. Their website, fillthestadium.com. Check that out and donate today. And we'll see you next time right here on Sports Spectrum. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.